evening, 47. The militia has released a hostage tape, outing the existence of Providence to the world. This was a fatal mistake, and our analysts are tracing its origin as we speak. In the meantime, we have a lead.
Alrighty. Oh, what are you yawning? Oh, damn, I was like a machine right there. As soon as I clicked record, I just yawned. Alright, what are we doing today? We're doing Hitman 2. Alrighty. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'll be reviewing Hitman 2 on the PlayStation 4. Hitman 2 was developed by IO Interactive and published by Warner Brothers Interactive. The game was released in November 2018 on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. Hitman 2 was directed by Christian Elverdam and Jacob Mickelson and written by Michael Vogt, which is basically the same team from Hitman 2016, minus one director. As I mentioned in my review for Hitman 2016, my history with the Hitman series dates back to me as an early teenager, with Hitman Blood Money being, the hot new thing, and I somehow got my hands on it, and I loved it. I say somehow because my parents are one of those people that were like, is that rated M? No, you're not playing that. So, anyways, I somehow got my hands on it, and I loved it. It introduced me to a whole new world of gaming, because up until then, I was mostly into shooters, with the odd platformer here and there. Maybe some fighting games, one or two racing games, but for the most part, it was shooters. And, although I never got the same feeling from Blood Money after I played Hitman 2 Hitman 2 Contracts and Absolution, I always still had hope that, another game would be like Blood Money. And so I pre-ordered Hitman 2016 with that hope in mind, and I got rewarded with a game that really did go back to its roots. The game was short and episodic, but the core of the game was reminiscent of Blood Money. Hitman 2 is more of the same, and while some might argue that as a bad thing, Hitman 2016 was so solid that I didn't care that Hitman 2 was nearly identical. It was just that damn good. I didn't get Hitman 2 at launch because at that point I hadn't even finished Hitman 1/Hitman 2016. So, and it took me a while to get around to it, but I finally bought it like 2 days before I did this review in March 2019, and with a combination of a tax refund sale at GameStop and a $25 voucher that I had, I basically got the base game for like $15. So, anyways, before I head into my review, I feel like I should maybe give some scores from other video game outlets, just so you can have an overall consensus, regardless of whether or not my score is reflective of that. IGN gave the game a 7.7 out of 10. GameSpot gave the game an 8 out of 10. Metacritic gave the PS4 edition an 82 out of 100. And The Guardian gave it a 4 out of 5. And much like I said in my Hitman 2016 review, I'm trying to stray away from numerical scores, but rather than eliminate them altogether, I'm just going to go for like a three-pronged approach. So, prong number 1, would I ever replay it? Absolutely. Prong number 2, would I ever recommend it to a close friend / buy it for him? Absolutely. If I had to give it a number for just the sake of simplicity, prong number 3, I'd give it an 8.5 out of 10.
It was necessary.
What, to kill a single man?
No. To put a stop to the agent program once and for all.
Hitman 2 is a direct sequel to Hitman Season 1, or Hitman 2016, or whatever name you decide to go with. For whatever reason, they didn't go with Hitman Season 2, because that's exactly what this is, so I'm really surprised. Most times you watch a sequel, or a subsequent season, like, oh, this is Season 2 of a TV show. It's usually just advancing where Season 1 left off, or it's advancing from where the first movie left off, and you expect the same characters, the same look, the same everything. The story is just simply picking up where you left off. And that's basically the deal here with Hitman 2. The gameplay is exactly the same, the visuals are exactly the same, the voice acting is exactly the same. The only difference is Hitman 2 is a different story. That's it. For a lot of games, this is usually viewed as a negative. We've heard that argument before. It's just blank with a blank skin. Or sorry, it's just blank with a different skin on it. Here, it's exactly the same without the skin, because it's the same skin. If you combined Hitman 1 and 2, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference with the exception of the cutscenes. But I mean, in this case, that isn't a bad thing. The first season was so solid that I'm actually glad. Solid. Can't even speak right now. I feel like I've been drinking. The first season was so solid that I'm actually glad that this wasn't any different. Especially since I played the two back to back. It felt like one nice continuous flow. So, I mean, if you really liked Hitman Season 1, you're definitely going to like Hitman 2.
It was necessary.
What, to kill a single man?
No. To put a stop to the agent program once and for all.
So something I was really critical of in my review for the first game was that the story for Hitman 1 was just really one-dimensional. It didn't really go anywhere. It kind of just copied the Blood Money formula, in which a bunch of seemingly random contracts all get tied up in the end. Blood Money was able to get away with it because it was the PS2 era. Storytelling in video games these days, let's just say that the bar has been raised considerably since then. I keep my expectations low, and I don't expect every game to be as heartfelt or as emotional as The Last of Us or Red Dead Redemption, but you gotta try, you know? So, Hitman 2016 failed to impress with the lack of anything, details really, and I just wish that they just fleshed it out more details on literally anything. And lo and behold, Hitman 2 did just that. They discussed a little bit more about Agent 47's origins. They went into Diana's childhood. Talked more about Providence's relationship with the world. It was just basically some Illuminati shit, but still they went into it, and it was all actually pretty interesting to me. In fact, I don't think I've ever gotten into Diana's childhood, which is a character that's been around since the very beginning. So I think that was pretty cool. It could have used even more detail, but the fact that it was an improvement means a lot to me as a fan of the series, or even just as a dude who plays video games. It wasn't perfect, but they clearly showed a willingness to improve, which for me is basically just as good. Unfortunately, while what I criticized in the first game was improved on in the second game, what I praised in the first game is actually gone now. The cutscenes in Hitman 2016 were some of the best I'd ever seen in a game for this generation. There wasn't a lot of context in them, but they looked damn good. Hitman 2 downgraded from these fully animated cutscenes and went with these weird motion comic stills. Like if you had just grabbed a still from a cutscene and then just put a voiceover on top of it. The narrative was more fleshed out, but it wasn't presented the same, which I wasn't a fan of. I mean, how do you go from these cool, good-looking cutscenes to these weird stills? That said, since the narrative was a lot better, I was basically cool with it in the end. Maybe it was just a way to save money or time, but at the end of it, I wasn't there, and I just gotta take it for what it is, and I wasn't completely disappointed. Writing will always mean more to me than the visual. So I'm excited for the third game, because if this pattern continues, I can see the overall arc being a great one, and just maybe the best the series has ever seen.
It was necessary.
What, to kill a single man?
No. To put a stop to the agent program once and for all.
The gameplay is exactly the same as the first one, and I know that because I played the two back to back. I think the only difference was the images of the icons. That said, like I mentioned before, the gameplay was solid in the first game. I didn't see much room for improvement. Hitman 2 is a third-person stealth action game. You're thrown into these large sandbox levels, and from there, how you complete your mission is completely up to you. Patience is key, and your wit is your strongest weapon. You're an assassin. You're not a soldier or a spy. Shooting your way through the game is the worst possible way to go about it. The Hitman genre is very much a puzzle game in that it forces you to think tactically. You have to sit back and observe and stay one step ahead of your enemy. Unlike other puzzle games, though, it's not a quick solve and it's not pass or fail. There are multiple ways in solving the puzzle, and if you mess up, it's not the end of the world. You can still salvage it. Unlike other tactical games such as XCOM, you are completely free to move however you want, and the game does not actively work against you either. That said, you still have to think ahead. The game returns with the Intel and Opportunity system, something I highly praised in the first game. The Intel and Opportunity system works for both veterans and newcomers. It allows veterans of the series to approach missions in new ways, as well as help them learn about the level they're in. For newcomers, it gives them a way to learn about for newcomers, it allows for them to learn about how Hitman works. It can be daunting just being thrown into a huge level and then the game going, alright, kill him. So the Opportunity and Intel system are good training wheels for newcomers. And don't get me wrong, the Opportunity and Intel system is not something that holds your hands either. It gives you a general idea of how to proceed, but the timing and all that is still something you need to take care of. For example, the game might provide you an opportunity to dress as a chef to get close to your enemy, and it'll say, get dressed as a food prep. How you get dressed as a food prep is something you still have to figure out.
Diana says hello.
All in all, Hitman 2 is a great sequel to an already good game. The game isn't perfect, but it's an improvement, which is more than anybody can ask for. Everything you enjoyed from the first one is back, but that goes for anything you didn't like as well. If for whatever reason you just didn't like how Agent 47 controls, or if you didn't like the overall style of the game, well, bad news for you, buddy. The gameplay is solid and simple, so it's easy for most people to pick up, and it's even easier for those that played Hitman 2016. The objective is simple: to kill your target without getting caught and without killing innocent bystanders. How you do that, though, is entirely up to you. The game has incredible replay value with different approaches to the main missions, with DLC, and with user-created contracts. The story still leaves a little bit to be desired, but it's definitely a step up from the first season, and if it continues on this road, it could very well lead to the best Hitman story of the entire series. Would I ever replay it? Absolutely. In fact, since I got it early, I can take advantage of the elusive contracts, and once the season pass probably goes on sale, I'll definitely be picking it up. Would I recommend it to a friend? I would recommend that they play the first game, and if they like it, absolutely. If I had to give it a score, I'd give Hitman 2 an 8.5 out of 10.